Appreciate you working on your Easter vacation, Jordan. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA strategy show. Baseball's here, but basketball is not over yet, and we'll tell you exactly why in just a minute, because one of the top dogs at Awesemo taking down the big money yesterday on Easter Sunday. That's a great way to spend the holiday. I'm Dave Loughran on Twitter at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D, joined by Josh Engleman. Got a lot of shows this week together, and every week going forward to the end of the season. Hit the man up at Josh Engleman on the Twitters. What's going on, brother?
Not too much, man. Feeling pretty good. I got 12 hours of sleep from yesterday afternoon through the middle of the night. So things are going really well for me. I'm super well rested. Sorry to anybody else that didn't get that sort of sleep. I don't know what to tell you. Make different life choices.
Yeah, you couldn't be more right. 12 hours of sleep sounds so great right now. I could sleep the whole day.
I basically did. Well, so here's what happened. I had to get up a little bit early. I had a strategy show yesterday with Rinpack, but right after I left that, I went and got 2 mimosas. I had a duck fat biscuit with sausage gravy, some fried chicken, a little bit of hot sauce, fried sage, ate all of that, came back home, went back to sleep for a little bit, woke up, hung out for a little, made a grilled cheese, then went back to bed again. It was great. Great. Lots of sleep, lots of good food. Happy Easter.
A what biscuit?
Duck fat.
What's that?
It's just made with duck fat instead of like butter.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. You should not say, ugh. You should go back in time and take that one out of your lexicon.
I'm
Eat
sure
that biscuit.
I'm sure it's good, but maybe call it something else.
No, you don't. You need to get duck fat in your life.
Yeah, I do.
That is the premier fat.
Do I buy it? Can you just buy it like next to the butter at the grocery store?
It's more shelf stable. So you can usually, like if you go to Whole Foods, you can get it in like a jar. It's not going to be in like the butter section, generally speaking. Doesn't need to be refrigerated. Huh?
How do they make duck fat?
You squeeze a duck really hard until all the stuff drips out.
Yeah. I mean, that was what I was envisioning. Anyway,
toss that in some roasted potatoes. Whew.
Nice. Yeah. I had a nice Easter dinner. Everything was fine yesterday. It's just once you get into the night, you know what I mean? You get into the night and then it gets brutal. But I will say this, at least I get some time to myself at night, break out the laptop, bring it downstairs, Don't worry. I use my iPhone for that. But just DFS research, crypto, all of that fun stuff. Watch some TV, watch the Angels and White Sox late night. It wasn't too bad. It's just when you have to wake up, man, it's brutal.
When you have to wake up, it's brutal.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, man. You should take waking up completely out of the equation.
Waking up wouldn't be bad if there was sleep before waking up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm usually pretty happy that I woke up. Otherwise, well, that's the end of it all.
Yeah, you wouldn't know though. We're happy to have you.
I would be onto a different life, but that's a different conversation.
Right, of course. We're happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. As you know, it's the easiest way to help support us here, but it really helps a ton. I mean, when it comes to the YouTube algorithm, when it comes to so many of these other bigger sports sites that they get the front page headlines on the YouTube, all we're trying to do is get a piece of that pie. And I think we do a pretty good job with it, putting out the best DFS content you're going to find here on YouTube. So if you like what we do, if you like the show, whether you're watching live or you're tuning in later in the day, hit that thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Help us get to, 60K sooner than later. And I think we can make that work. And comment. If you're not in the YouTube chat, if that's closed up and that show's over, hit us with a comment down below, and I'm always sure to read them and respond if it's something worthwhile. So, Josh, we got a 7-game slate, an interesting one, and all week long we got like between 7 and 9 games, so it's kind of nice, right? All week, 7 to 9 games. Pretty happy about that. But I say we hit on Fantasy Cruncher lineup study first and see what our boy Tom Kennedy did on DraftKings.
Absolutely. This is a really weird slate, by the way. I've mentioned it before. 6 of the 7 games tonight lock at 7:00. You don't see that all that often.
I was shocked when I saw that. I looked on DraftKings and I saw the way they were scheduled. You know, they go in order of time, of course.
Yeah. 7, 7, 7, 7, 7.
Right. And then I went over to Odds Shopper because I take those odds and I put them oddshopper.awesemo.com, by the way, totally free. You can shop odds from all different books. It's fantastic. I went over there and I'm like, why is the first game last? You know?
Yeah.
It was really strange. You're right. There's one game at 8:00. That's it. Everything else is at 7 Eastern. So from an injury news standpoint, it's going to be pretty wild. Like we're probably going to get an influx of news around 5 to 6:30 and then nothing else throughout the night. This is actually going to be one of those nights where you might be able to step away for a little bit and you know, not worry about news breaking mid slate and having to make late swaps.
Oh yeah. We're locked at 8. By 8:00, you're done and dusted. You don't have to stick around till 10. I'm not really looking forward to live before lock tonight. I think 6 to 7 is going to be just an utter tire fire of news. And there's a lot of studs that are up in the air. So building lineups for an hour with Eric tonight at 6:00 is going to just be a fool's errand, I think, for a while, especially if we don't get any, like if it's a lot of game time decision type stuff, that 6:45 to 7:00 run is going to be dreadful.
No question.
Tune in though. 6 to 7 live before lock.
5 to 6 deeper dive. 4 to 5 NBA tip off. We got you covered all day long, all sports. You know what it is. And by the way, hopefully you guys all had a great Easter. For those of you that celebrate it, we're able to spend some time with family and not get the coronavirus. All right, Josh, let's talk about this lineup study and see what we got here. By the way, just off the top, I'm looking at it now, and you have 2 Orlando Magic players. So no matter how bad this team actually is, no matter how good Denver's been playing, when you're shorthanded as much as they've been, you can create significant fantasy value. And that is the whole point that we make every single day. You don't have to be a particularly good player to be a good play.
Yeah, when I broke it down with Rinpack yesterday, I asked him a serious question. You know, it was a 4-game slate. How many Magic players do you think are in the optimal lineup between 0 and 4? And it's like, yeah. I guess we'll take 2 because that's the middle, but it could be anything just because they have to play 240 minutes. Yesterday, we got RJ Hampton and Wendell Carter Jr. into the optimal for Tom. He also had Curry, Kelly Oubre, Najee Marshall, Clint Capella, Lonzo Ball, who came back, went for 52.5 fantasy points, played 37 minutes after missing multiple weeks with an injury that I would expect him to not let him play that many minutes. So wild stuff there. And then James Johnson at 4,300 rounded out the rest of that lineup. Tom taking it down by a full 4 points yesterday.
Yeah, that's impressive, man. And then Stephen Curry against Atlanta with Kelly Oubre. He had a bunch from the same team. How many games were there yesterday?
4.
Do you know?
4.
Okay, so it makes sense that most of his players are from similar teams. All right.
Yep.
I wasn't sure about that. So 4 games to make sense because he had 2 Warriors, 2 Magic, 3 Pels. I'm assuming Ingram and Zion were both still out.
That would be my assumption as well, but I didn't look at anything after the strategy show. The only thing that I knew is that Kem Birch was like scratched super late. Otherwise, I didn't really pay attention to the slate yesterday after I did the show.
Yeah, this was Easter. It was Sunday. I would have got murdered if I was like, all right, just give me time to make lineups and go over to your parents. I'll be there. You know, don't worry about me. Take the baby. Okay. Let me know when you're there safe. It's right down the street and I'll be there when I can. It's not something I haven't done before, but I don't want to do that now. So you ready to dive into this?
More than a little bit, man. I'm excited for today's slate.
All right. I love it. Before we do, check out our sponsor, No House Advantage. Download the app if you haven't done so yet. We talk so much about finding edges and finding ways to build bankrolls these days. It gets tougher, you know, and when you're talking DraftKings and FanDuel tournaments, they get bigger, they get harder, the tools get better, which is why you should be an Awesemo sub, but that's besides the point. At No House Advantage, it's peer-to-peer player props, contest form, and we have all of the tools on our site for free that a lot of people don't even know about. Like if you're watching this show, you know about it. People that don't know about Awesemo, that don't watch the show but play on No House Advantage, don't have access to these tools that are totally free. The player prop tool which is the Awesemo No House Advantage projections that compares what we have them projected at against their actual player props. The optimal lineups tool for No House Advantage, also totally free. All of that at awesemo.com. You can use to your advantage to get an edge and to win money over there, and also use the promo code Awesemo when you sign up, because that's going to get you a $20 first match deposit bonus when you sign up and deposit. If you're wondering what it is, if you're wondering what peer-to-peer player props are, it's a contest style game. Okay. It's not like DraftKings or FanDuel sports books where you're betting singles and they don't let you parlay props. You 8 of them. It might be 10. I think it's 8, right, Josh?
10.
It's 8.
10.
Yeah, it's 8. And
10.
It's 8 of that, and the top one gets you a certain amount of points. So if you feel most confident about this prop, you put it up top. And unfortunately, I can't play in my state. That's why I wasn't sure what it was. I've tried. Unfortunately, Pennsylvania's stupid about this, but I can bet on sports and I can play DFS. But you can't play No House Advantage in Pennsylvania. I don't know. But if you can play it, the highest confidence one, the one that you like the most, you put at the top, because that's going to get you the most points. The one that you're not most confident in, you put at the bottom. So there's a legitimate strategy that goes into this. Sorry. And there's a lot of tools that we have totally free. There's the promo code Awesemo. And look, build your bankroll there. Even if you decide once you do to take a little of that over to DraftKings and FanDuel and start dipping your toes into the big GPPs and seeing what you can do over there, see if you can do some damage on DraftKings. Start here, build that bankroll, put yourself in a great position and start making money, because I can assure you, whether you're making money on DraftKings or you're making money on No House Advantage, it all spends the same. So go to No House Advantage, download the app, use the promo code Awesemo, get your $20, and use our tools at awesemo.com, totally free. All right, let's do it, man. New York, Brooklyn. See, now I'm getting in the rhythm. All I got to do is just start talking a little bit. Then we're there.
I know the feeling, man. I know the feeling.
New York and Brooklyn. New York Knicks only 5-point dogs today. I'm sorry, 4-point dogs against the Nets, 216.5 total. Of course, you're dealing with injuries on the Brooklyn side, which we'll get to momentarily. But for the Knicks, they're healthy. Outside of Mitchell Robinson, this team is healthy. And it is a big pace up spot for them, even though it's a lower total. We've seen totals. Dude, did you see the 202 total the other day between them and Detroit?
Yeah, it feels like a different era of basketball.
It's nuts. So I think we'll see a Knicks game with a sub 200 total. It won't be this one. Yeah. What are you doing with the top priced guys like Randall today?
Basically nothing. He's 9K on FanDuel, 9,600 on DraftKings. He's the only guy from the Knicks to show up in double digits in ownership on either FanDuel or DK, and he's just barely cresting that. 10.8 on FanDuel, 10.8 on DraftKings. I think he's a little under-owned on FanDuel at 9K, a little over-owned on DK at 9,600, but ultimately he's like a 10%er. After that, it gets really tricky. I think Derrick Rose could be an option for value on both sites, but nothing too crazy. These guys should be owned in the single digits, whether that's Rose, whether that's RJ Barrett, whether that's Nerlens Noel at 4,500 on DraftKings. I just don't see a lot here. I thought that I would, but the pricing is sort of where it should be for a group of guys that are all like 0.9 type fantasy point per minute guys. So if I'm not getting to Randall, I'm probably not getting to much else. They've just got too many guys that look similar today.
Okay. Now with Brooklyn, I put on our run sheet today when I was looking at this that Harden and Durant are questionable, but I really don't know. They haven't been listed out yet. They were listed out yesterday. They're playing the second of a back-to-back. Kyrie Irving with another solid, but I almost want to say underwhelming game, Josh. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think you know what I mean. When you have no Harden and no Kevin Durant against the Bulls, it's like, all right, come on. And even though they took the loss, which is great for the Philadelphia 76ers, who stunk it up against the Grizzlies. But do you think they both sit today?
I have Harden in. I have Durant out.
Okay. Because it said I saw a bunch of news reports just a couple of days ago that Kevin Durant was very close to a return. That's why I didn't put him out quite yet. But you're probably right.
I think that he'll be back in their next game.
Okay.
And then Harden, like I legitimately just don't know. Like he can be, like to me, Harden is more questionable. Durant to me is just out, in my opinion. That doesn't have to be right. But like Harden is the guy that's a little bit more tenuous because it's not like he's been out for weeks at a time.
All right. So then if that's the case, we have a Brooklyn team that I think I mentioned this to you on Thursday, Josh, or Wednesday, sorry. Maybe it been Friday. I don't know. This is one of those teams where they brought James Harden over, and I was like, oh, great. They have no fantasy value now because every day we're going to have to guess which one of Harden, Irving, or Kevin Durant is going to be good. We're going to have to figure out whether or not they just all do enough to be okay every day or one of them goes off, and then you still have to get that right. But we've seen so many injuries and so many, Kyrie Irving just not coming to play basketball that we haven't had to worry about that this season, right? We really haven't. It's every single day for the past couple of months, it feels like at least one of Harden or Irving has at least been somewhat viable.
I didn't even really think about it, but let me look at this quick. Let me pull something up.
You're going to see how many minutes they played together?
I am absolutely going to see how many minutes they've played together.
I looked it up the other day, and I can't remember the number, but it's
minimal.
Yeah, it's more than I thought, but it's still not a lot at all.
And like I'm saying, literally on the floor together at the same time, not like, oh, these three guys were
not the
active.
Same game.
Right. Because like I don't really care how many they've played. 186 minutes together this season with all three guys on the floor.
Crazy. Yeah, and assuming they all play like, what'd you say, 180 minutes, right?
Yeah.
If you were to kind of equate that to games, and they're all playing 35 minutes a game, it's like 5 games.
Yeah, it's not a ton at all. It's been very minimal. James Harden in those 186 minutes, 18.9% usage rate.
Yeah, that's nuts. I'm assuming his assist rate is still monstrous, but still.
truly high.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do with this Brooklyn team now. Oh, he's been incredible. I mean, like, are you surprised though?
No,
like, he's really good.
But I feel like Harden's playing the best basketball I've seen in a long time. But yeah, I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
I mean, he's been playing top 5 in the NBA level basketball for the past 5 years. Sure. So I'm not exactly shocked that he's playing different basketball in that he's facilitating more, which, we could take that for however we want to. But we also saw him have 40+% usage on elite level true shooting for multiple years for the Rockets. Yeah. So I don't want to undersell what he's been doing. Today, though, 11-5 on FanDuel, 10-9 on DraftKings. Probably at least a little bit over-owned to me, depending on if he's playing or not. And, I really don't know if he's playing or not. The guy that I'm interested in is Kyrie, especially if Harden is in. I don't love a 10K price tag on Kyrie on FanDuel, but we have him projected for 5% ownership. And on this slate, I am willing to roll the dice on a 10K Kyrie. It's not like I'm projecting him highly. He's been at 1.4 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days. In my baseline numbers, he's 1.3, and I think that is something that we can move forward with today. So if he's in, I actually don't hate the pay up to be contrarian option for Kyrie. I don't like it as much on DraftKings just because the flexibility is a little bit different. But I have no problem actually getting to Kyrie over Harden today. Harden at 11-5 if he's really coming back against this Knicks team. Clearly, he's a good like he's going to project for a lot of fantasy points. I don't know if the value is there given what else we have on the slate.
I'm really surprised by this because this is generally not a stance that you would take going to a 10K Kyrie against the slowest paced team in the league that plays solid defense if James Harden is in. What is it? Is it something just about the slate maybe that makes it a little bit more appealing? Because this is not typical Josh moves right here.
Yeah, and this will change a little bit if Fred VanVleet ends up getting ruled out because that'll redistribute the point guard ownership.
What a disaster he was the other night.
Oh, for sure.
Even before he got hurt.
No, the reason that I think this looks so interesting is because we have infinite value at other positions. So Minnesota is super shorthanded today. We're creating a ton of value there. Detroit is going to be without Mason Plumlee today, and Isaiah Stewart is a power forward on FanDuel. So to me, he's like a 50% of the lineups guy. So you're paying down at power forward immediately, which means that you have a more ability to pay up at other positions across the slate. So Kyrie, to me, is getting pushed up higher just because of the value that exists at other positions. It allows you to pay for the more expensive players at those non-value positions.
Okay. Solid enough reasoning for me. Do you go past anything on Brooklyn once you get past Kyrie?
Not really. I mean, Joe Harris is 6,200 on DK. If anybody plays him at 6,200 today, they should have their DFS card revoked. I mean, that's basically impossible for him. Like the amount of shots that
DFS card revoked. You want it triple stamped.
I'm trying to tell the Awesemo viewers, like if you're thinking about playing Joe Harris on DraftKings, you're
just looking out.
Unregistered. Yeah, that's just clearly like anybody can get there if the shots just keep falling, but he would have to basically not miss for him to pay off that price tag, especially if Harden gets back.
Let me ask you a question because chat's talking about this.
Okay.
Ben Simmons right now.
Yeah.
Without Joel Embiid is a bad basketball player, like playing awful basketball. In just one brief statement, what is wrong with Ben Simmons? I see it in chat, and it's an interesting because I'm assuming he's destroyed a ton of people, a ton of lineups recently. When Embiid is out, you go, man, his price is coming down. He's got a good matchup, and then once again, he just absolutely comes up short.
What is wrong with Ben Simmons?
Yeah,
nothing.
Do you think it's actually just Ben Simmons not wanting to? Do you think it's motivation?
I don't think it's anything.
Here you go. Sometimes, you're married to the numbers, Josh, and I love it, but sometimes it doesn't work. With Ben Simmons, you got to identify that something is going on here.
No, I don't. I'm good. I'm just going to keep playing him because that's what I should do. I'm not giving you some Max Kellerman nonsense hot take because he didn't play well for 2 weeks. Give me a break. Come on. 625 minutes this season with Joel Embiid off the floor. Ben Simmons has a 24% usage rate, 1.14 FanDuel points per minute. I'm in, no matter what.
Give me his numbers since Joel Embiid went down the last time in these 11 games that he played without Joel Embiid. Because let's be clear here, 11 games is a pretty sizable piece of the season to be playing without your number one player. And I think it gives us a decent enough sample for a guy that plays sometimes close to 40 minutes a game. While you look that up, I will get Utah and Dallas started. The Utah Jazz on the road against the Mavs, 5.5-point favorites, 224 total. Very healthy team coming into this one, the Utah Jazz. What are we doing, Josh?
All right, so I used March 11th as the date. Embiid didn't play the game before that. He did play 2 games minimally in that range, but I think this is going to serve its purpose with Embiid off the floor. 328 minutes, 24% usage, 1.02 FanDuel points per minute.
Crap.
Yeah, I'm still going to play him in every one of these situations. True shooting for Ben Simmons in that time, 48%. To me, I think it's pretty easy. He's just not making shots. And that is not something that I'm at all worried about.
Okay. Yeah.
Especially for someone like Ben Simmons, because it's not as if the shots that he is normally taking are probably better shots. Like you're expecting his shots to mostly be at the rim or the short mid-range. This isn't a guy that's taking a lot of 19 footers. So I'm just going to chalk that up to some bad luck. If he's shooting 48% true shooting right now, and that's cool with me. I'll happily chalk that up to bad luck.
All right. Well, fair enough. I disagree wholeheartedly, and maybe we'll have to put another bet on this one.
What's the bet?
We'll come up with something. We will definitely come up with something.
Maybe because it goes so well for me every time I make a Sixers bet.
That's exactly why I would like to make another bet. What are you doing with the Utah Jazz?
Very little. We know the drill here. When Utah is fully healthy, and they are, which, by the way, they've been basically fully healthy all year. And I think that's big part of the reason why you see them at the top of the standings. Health matters for the best teams. And if you could skirt through the season being legitimately healthy, you're probably going to be near the top of the standings. Neither here nor there. Gobert, like a 10%er on both sites, 8,100 and 7,900 on FanDuel and DraftKings, respectively. But all of these guys, we know what we're getting here. It's not going to be like the most appealing fantasy spot. These guys are all priced exactly where they should be. To me, you're not squeezing any value out of Utah. If you end up with some of them, fine. I would say Gobert would be the first priority. Donovan Mitchell would be second. None of those two things should be shocking anyone when they come out of my mouth. But you're not finding anybody in this Utah Jazz game that you would consider to be a must play.
Okay. On the other side of this one, Porzingis is questionable. Yeah. Josh Richardson questionable. And that guy's fallen off the metaphorical cliff over the past couple of years. But of course, he's playing alongside Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, but still just not a great year again for Richardson. Yeah. There are times, though, where he's viable when that price comes down low enough. Assuming him and Finney Smith and the like aren't exactly going to be in that great position today against the Jazz.
No, I mean, I want to get to Luka first and foremost. 10-3 on FanDuel, 10-8 on DraftKings. Whether Porzingis is in or not, if Porzingis is out, it shouldn't surprise you that Luka Doncic is going to look even better today from a fantasy perspective. So I'm happily going to get to Luka. I don't mind the matchup at all. And I think this is a spot where Luka is probably trying to keep them in the game a little bit more just because of the defensive matchup. Second best guy to me actually is Josh Richardson, 5K on FanDuel, 4,800 on DraftKings, if he is in, that is. But we're not getting a lot of fun here in terms of guys you want to roster. Only Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis are north of 0.88 fantasy points per minute over the past 30 days. This is just a team of like filler role players. And that's fine. That's what Dallas is trying to do to be a good basketball team, but that doesn't make them a good DFS option unless they have a bunch of guys out. So outside of Luka, Porzingis, if he plays, and Josh Richardson, I would have limited amounts of the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay. That makes it easier. We can move on to another game that might be a slightly more appealing here. The Washington Wizards and the Toronto Raptors. Bradley Beal, once again, questionable for this one. He did not play on Saturday. His status is still up in the air. But then not only do you have Bradley Beal questionable, you also have Rui Hachimura, who was added to the injury report Saturday, did not play and is questionable for this one. So those are two guys that were playing considerable minutes. Obviously Bradley Beal, but also Rui, pretty significant for a guy averaging like 37 minutes per game over the last month. Do you have them in? I'm assuming you do right now, but in the event that they don't play, things get really interesting again for a Wizards team that we've been focused on a lot over the past week.
I know, and they're getting too many dudes back, and it makes it really complicated. So I do have Beal in. I think he's the best play on Washington if he is in. 8,800 on FanDuel is a price tag you cannot get away from, because if he's coming back, he's playing 36 minutes. It's not like he's coming back and playing 20. That's not the Scott Brooks way. I will happily still get to Russ, although he's projecting a little bit higher owned on FanDuel than I would really like to get to. I would much rather just pay to get to Luka or pay to get to, in this case, I would rather take Kyrie $1,000 cheaper and that gigantic ownership discount in a large field GPP. Rui looks fine on FanDuel as well at 6K. But the real problem here is that you are back for the Wizards and are 3,700 on FanDuel and 3,600 on DK. We've got Ish Smith back now, soaking up terrible minutes. I don't know if Chandler Hutchison plays or Garrison Matthews. Like, I don't know how the rest of that rotation is going to shake out. So the only thing that I could really do is focus on the guys that I think play no matter what if they're in. Beal, Westbrook, Rui Hachimura. They're the only guys that I can truly trust. I would like to say that I trust Robin Lopez a little bit more. He's played big minutes over the past 3 games, but when push comes to shove, he's still Robin Lopez, and there's still way better value options. So if Beal is in, play Beal, play a little bit of Westbrook, and mostly walk away. If Beal is out, we already know how to just jam Russell Westbrook into our lineups. I think Howell Neto could be a decent value at 3,900 or 3,800, depending on which site you're playing on. And after that, you just have to get lucky that you pick the guy that gets the minutes.
All right. So when it comes to Toronto, you've got a lot of
Rui Hachimura ruled out 32 seconds ago.
Wow. Okay. How about that luck? All right. So does that make a big enough impact for you to look at anyone as a priority option today from a value standpoint?
This would be a really good time to have Adam Scher on the show, because he just clearly knows the Washington rotation significantly better than I do. If Rui is going to be out.
Tough life, but someone's got to live it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be him more often than not. I'd probably be in some real big trouble if I was. Just a lot of drinking. Anyway, so if Rui is out, which he was in the last game, and we also had Beal out, but I don't think both of those things would matter all that much. Like Bertans played 20 in his return. I don't get the sense that that's going to be a number that goes all that high. So I think that takes Denny from your minutes are now really weird for Denny Avdia with everybody back to, I think 30 is now a firm number for him. So while he sucks, he is now a value play that you can get to. After that, we're probably looking at Chandler Hutchison's minutes are probably pretty firm now. I don't think it changes all that much, because all of these guys that are going to, like, if you incrementally give Ish Smith, Garrison Matthews, Chandler Hutchison, and potentially Jerome Robinson more minutes, all you're doing is just getting a bunch of more guys that still don't have any value.
It's tough because Bertans came back and played 4 real short burst rotations, right? Like 4 to 5 minutes at a time. And that's not going to cut it.
No.
I think you're right. Just looking at this now, who benefits enough Or is it just some of it goes to Bertans, some of it goes to Hutchison, and nobody really soaks up enough of these minutes to make an impact?
I mean, you can make a case that like Robin Lopez is a little bit more interesting. He played 32 minutes the last
minutes,
time. Yeah. If 30 minutes is going to happen for Robin Lopez, he's probably a bit of a value. They could just make that split be more down the line with Robin Lopez and Alex Flynn. They played 45 and a half minutes together. So, they're largely going to be the center options, or at least it seems like that's going to be the case. So I think Robin Lopez is now officially more in play than he was, but still not someone that you should be like going nuts for.
Yeah, he's not minimum salary either, right? I mean, he's played 27 minutes or more in 3 straight, so his price is in that mid 4K range, which is fine. But I don't know if it's anything more than a kind of a filler spot, like you're saying.
Right.
Toronto has Fred VanVleet pending right now. We have no idea what's going on here. He had that strained right hip flexor on Friday. That burned me pretty good. I had some great lineups with Fred VanVleet's 14 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then he left. He couldn't even kind of try to mitigate the damage. Kyle Lowry's out. Rodney Hood's out. Paul Watson out. Sure, some of those names aren't household names, aren't super important, but the more guys that go out, the lesser you're going to see this rotation. And Nick Nurse is known for a condensed rotation to begin with. So let's start with Fred VanVleet in, and then we'll do Fred VanVleet out.
All right, so Fred VanVleet is in. He's probably the best play on FanDuel. He's 7,400. I'm going right back to him. I had him in the optimal lineup 41% of the time.
That's fun.
Just locking and loading him. And I'm doing the same thing at 8,100 on DK, not even thinking twice. Same sort of story for Pascal Siakam. He's just like a step behind that. I want to have a ton of Siakam on both sites. Here's the next piece that I'm ready to tell you that I think is wild. And I just want to touch on what the rates have been. OG Anunoby 7K and 7,200. And I know like immediately we think we know what OG Anunoby is. He's at 1.13 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days.
Played really well.
He is quietly stepping into a more advanced role than he has had previously. He is not just some vacuous 3-and-D guy any longer. He is, if OG Anunoby is playing at a 1.1 rate, that is a high-level NBA player giving his defensive pedigree as well. So I actually think that OG Anunoby, at least on FanDuel, is my second favorite Toronto guy ahead of Pascal Siakam. I do prefer Siakam on DraftKings because I think the ceiling is higher. But I still want to get to Gary Trent. I'll roll the dice on Chris Boucher on FanDuel. All of those guys look great because this is the best spot you can find in DFS. You're gaining like 5 extra possessions by facing the Wizards today. The pace is going to be out of control. And that doesn't even say anything about what happens if Fred VanVleet happens to get ruled out and we get to play Malachi Flynn at 30, the flat minimum on FanDuel, or 3,500 on DraftKings, and he's probably going to play 30 minutes. He then becomes probably the highest value ranking player of the day. And then you're even unloading even more on Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent. So Toronto is basically my favorite team of the day. I listed them in our NBA strategy syllabus as my favorite team today. That's with VanVleet in. That does not change if Fred VanVleet is out.
So this game on Friday against the Warriors, the Raptors won by 53 points. Like, if you want to see what emptying the bench looks like, go look at the game flow of that. It's amazing on the popcorn machine. I mean, you had the entire bench play well over a quarter of basketball straight through.
Yep.
Flynn came in when VanVleet went down 4.5 minutes into the third, and he played 20 straight minutes to close the game. Now, it was a blowout, so all of those guys off the bench were playing in a blowout. Now, Nick Nurse still only played 10 guys. We know he has a pretty short rotation, understandably so, but I think if VanVleet is out, Flynn obviously becomes the top value option on the slate, and I don't see how you get away from something like this at or near minimum salary against Washington. It's just not something I want to say, oh, well, this could go wrong or this could go wrong. Sure, but he's so cheap that I don't really know if there's any incentive to trying to get different here, Josh, unless there's actually comparative value down there that makes sense as a pivot.
Yeah, you're just going to have to play him. In a cash game, if Fred VanVleet is out, Malachi Flynn and Jordan McLaughlin are going to be your point guard combos today. Like, bar none, they're the first guys in. And then Isaiah Stewart is going to be a lock for your cash games as well, who we'll get to in a bit. Those 3 guys are going to be guaranteed cash game plays. You're probably going to get Cat by default in that situation, depending on Beal. Like, you're going to be able to go really aggressively stars and scrubs and cash today because we already have the value.
Yep. All right. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. What do we have? We got like 500 people, 515 people watching on a Monday morning. Go ahead. Hammer that thumbs up. And if you hate the show, hit the thumbs down, but you got to do it twice. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment after the show. One day, Josh, I dream of a world where I don't even have to ask people, and it just happens organically, naturally. Like
I have that already. That's my process show, man. I get here and I already have 20 likes with less viewership. It's just, I'm incredible like that.
The purpose of that is what I've explained before. It's the Awesemo faithful, the loyal, the people that will be there no matter what are hitting that thumbs up. It's a good thing, but it's not impressive is what I'm saying.
I don't know, man. I get like a 75% ratio of views to likes while I'm live. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's the Awesemo faithful.
It's the Josh Engleman faithful. I agree.
At 6:30 in the morning, which, by the way, check out the process show every morning. Is it 6 or 6:30?
6:30.
Yeah. See, I can still give you some love over here. 6:30. Check that out. Check out his contender videos. And all of the other stuff we've got going on. You can watch or listen, all of that in podcast form as well. So if you wanted to go back and watch it, but maybe you're not up at 6:30, or maybe you're trying to get the kids ready for school or getting ready for work, whatever it is, you could go back, check it out on podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is. We got you covered throughout the day, unless it's like the Deeper Dive or Live Before Lock, where there's no point of putting it in podcast form because it's has no value after the slate locks. This show, the process show, all of the other shows with any bit of shelf life, you can listen to outside of YouTube if you want.
By the way, the process show is not up on podcast feeds.
Oh, you know what? That's right, because the Slate Starter show.
Yeah, it's more of a visual experience.
Yeah, that's right. The Slate Starter show is the podcast show, or the process show isn't. But the point remains, all of our stuff with the shelf life outside of that, which is more visual, is in podcast form. El Negro Loco with the super chat. Thanks, brother. Says, we haven't done an NBA related bet all year. We got to make this happen with Josh and Laffy. Who will take the walk of shame? Stay tuned and find out, folks. Yeah, we'll come up with something. And it'll be
I've had plenty of those too, by the way.
Yeah. And I will win because Ben Simmons, there's something going on. Art by Rojas says 100 on the $55 tourney. Thanks, boys. Little super chat there. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. And thanks for watching. All right, let's talk about the San Antonio Spurs hosting the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs are 9-point dogs on the road, 217 total. When we look at this Cavs team, we've had a bunch of injuries lately, but now Jared Allen is questionable, and so is Larry Nance. So with both of those guys still up in the air, is there any way we're getting to Cleveland today?
I don't think we're getting to much in this game, although San Antonio is projected to be a little bit more owned than I thought they would be. This one's just gross. Like it's a truly terrible game depending on who's in or out. Like if Allen and Nance are in, the highest I have in anybody in their optimal lineup is Jared Allen at 7.8% on FanDuel. I don't know what to do with Kevin Love. Like he's 4,600 on FanDuel. I have no idea how many minutes Kevin Love is going to play today. I gave him 24. One of these days, he's just going to play more minutes, you would think, and he's going to absolutely wreck a $4,600 salary because he's still really good offensively. He's going to do whatever, but for right now, at 24 minutes, I'm good. I can find something else. I don't really want Allen or Garland or Sexton if these guys are all in. Now, if Jared Allen's out and Larry Nance is out, then we know what we're doing. We're bumping up everybody else, and we're going to find at least a little bit more value. I think in that kind of situation, Kevin Love becomes a little bit more viable. But I see Cleveland as one of the least likely teams to be rostered today. Okay. No, Art by Rojas. I did not miss your super chat. I just mentioned it, actually. Thank you. Okay, so then let's talk about, is it more so this game that you hate or mostly Cleveland? Both. Okay, it's both. Is it a spot where you just want to move on and spend a little bit more time on a couple of these remaining games? No, because I think that there are actual, like, legitimately okay basketball players on San Antonio. Like, I am not as interested in the Spurs as the public, particularly on FanDuel. Like, we've got DeMar DeRozan at 18% ownership, 7,900. I'm okay with getting to DeRozan. This is a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy playing north of 30 minutes against a bad Cleveland team. that is someone you're going to be working into your lineups. Similar story for DeJounte Murray. He's like a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy. You should be owning him. You should own Keldon Johnson or Derek White. These guys are functionally solid as DFS plays. I think they're going a bit over-owned. But in terms of matchups, the fact that the Spurs are 9-point favorites, I think is actually a benefit to trying to get to some of these Spurs starters. I don't mind it as much. I'm just a little bit surprised to see how owned they are. So I like them, but I'm not sure I like them as much in large field GPPs because I think they're getting a bit more love than they should.
Pretty amazing how well Jakob Poeltl's played recently, and Pop just deciding that after all this time, he's finally going to give him sizable minutes. And you say, oh, well, it's because of Aldridge. Yeah, but Aldridge was out a ton last year, and Poeltl got, played sparingly. He might have started, but he'd play like 20 minutes sometimes 25, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. Now you look at his last 6 games, he's playing a ton of minutes. He's playing well, but that price has also climbed to a spot where, yeah, he's playing great, and it'd be awesome if we were getting him at former Jakob Poeltl prices, but that is not what we're getting at all.
He's so good, like in real life basketball. In DFS, he's just like a fantasy point per minute guy. You're hoping you get him on the right day. In real life, they should be really, really happy with him. He is one of the best defensive centers in the league, and I don't think that most people really understand that.
I was
he's a weird actual good prize coming out of that the Kawhi trade. DeRozan is what it is. Like, they should have traded DeRozan and tried to get additional value. They're going to have Jakob Poeltl as a starting center for this team for a pretty long time.
No doubt. And listen, when Poeltl was in Toronto, you could go back and watch shows of mine from like 4 or 5 years ago, however long it was, being like, oh, I really like this guy. If you just give him an opportunity and give him the run, he can be really good. And I think it was right around the time, right, that Jonas Valanciunas was traded, and there was actually an opportunity for those minutes to go to Jakob Poeltl, and it just never really materialized. But for the first time in a while, he's getting that consistent run. And I'm with you. He's playing well. And even for fantasy, though, fantasy, he's been a +1 per minute guy since he took over this increased role, which is impressive because usually when you start playing more minutes, you're less efficient.
He has the second best defensive plus minus. If you blend all the main options, box plus minus, DRPM, D-Raptor, defensive LeBron, it's the second best defensive player in the league this year behind Rudy Gobert at center. No, I don't think that anybody really knows that because he's Jakob Poeltl and he plays for the Spurs.
Yeah, why would you, right?
I'm a huge fan of him anchoring a defense.
He's played well. Let's talk about Detroit and OKC. You got the Pistons as 3-point favorites. What's wrong?
This is just, think about this game for a second. I'm just wooing the fact that we have really got this is something else today.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. 3-point favorites, 212.5 total. Wayne Ellington, Rodney Magruder out for the Detroit side of this game. And then we'll get to just the mess that is the Oklahoma City Thunder momentarily. All right. So Grant, Plumlee, Diallo, Sadiq Bey.
No Plumlee today, buddy. Out, rest.
Oh, okay. When did we get that news?
Last night, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
Yeah. Which is, it's about to flip this one on its head because Isaiah Stewart is a $3,700 starting center playing power forward on FanDuel tonight.
Oh yeah. You mentioned that earlier. And in the ownership, Isaiah Stewart's getting a lot of ownership. Slipped my mind. Sorry. Tired morning. But okay. Yeah. Let's start with the front court then. Yeah. The absence of Mason Plumlee. How does that affect this team starting with Isaiah Stewart?
So he's a no-brainer. You just put him in your lineup on both sides and you don't even think twice. He's going to be the starting center for Detroit. They only have basically one other big man, and that's Tyler Cook. I don't really know what else they could possibly do other than playing Jeremy Grant at the 5. So I have Isaiah Stewart in for 30 minutes. Even if you put him in for 24 minutes, he's going to be like a really nice value play. Basically a fantasy point per minute guy. But the big piece here is that he's a power forward on FanDuel and not a center. So you can lock and load him pretty easily. On DK, it's a little different, but he's still projected for 36% ownership, and that is completely warranted. I actually have him in the optimal lineup, slightly more than that. Don't overthink this one for Isaiah Stewart. He is just a fantastic play no matter what. Jeremy Grant, similar story. 6,400 on FanDuel. You should just be playing a lot of Jeremy Grant. I think both he and Stewart make for a really nice pairing. He's owned about 23% of the time. I think that looks fine. Then we get into some really, really murky stuff. Saban Lee, Dennis Smith Jr., Frank Jackson, Killian Hayes now back. I have no idea what these guys are going to do for minutes. The last 2 games they've played, they got beat by 40 in both of them. Not aggregate, like both of the games, they got their asses handed to them. I don't know who's going to play. Saban Lee started the last game. They took these guys out in 3 minutes because they were minus 13 right out of the gate. Dennis Smith Jr. started the second half. Killian Hayes could start today. I have no idea. The starting lineup for Detroit is incredibly important today because Oklahoma City isn't the same team as what they've seen lately. They're not going to get beat by 40 here, or at least they shouldn't. So the starting point guard, I think, is very much in play. I just don't know who it's going to be. We've got Saddiq Bey projected for 24% ownership on FanDuel right now at 4,400. I don't know what to do with his minutes either. I don't know what to do with anything on this Detroit team because their minutes are so in flux. I assume Saddiq Bey plays a ton of minutes. He hasn't played them in the blowouts. Do you think he gets back to that 30-minute run? I don't know. He played 17 minutes, 26 minutes, and 25 minutes in his last 3. My assumption is he should still be playing 30 if this is going well, but they have so many bodies that are active now that I don't really know how it shakes out.
You know who the best guard has been for Detroit over the past week and a half?
I'm guessing it's Corey Joseph.
It's Corey Joseph, and no doubt about it. I've actually had Corey Joseph in lineups recently, which is not something I ever thought I would say. Corey Joseph has actually played really well. Just go ahead and take a look at what he's done off the bench. He's been good, but then last game, 17 minutes. I'm assuming, Josh, that some of that was just is very simply a result of a monster blowout at the hands of the New York Knicks. But Corey Joseph has played, in my opinion, and I would almost say objectively, better than any other guard on this team. But now you just what do you do with Dennis Smith Jr.'s back? And you mentioned it. Dennis Smith Jr. hadn't played since the 24th. He played on the 3rd, played 12 minutes, and Corey Joseph went from seeing 24 to 28 minutes to 17. It's a blowout, and maybe that had an impact, but you think it affects his minutes. And do I really want to try and ride this wave further with Corey Joseph and hope that lightning strikes the 8th time in the same spot? There's just no incentive for me to do so.
No, and Killian Hayes is back. He played 20 minutes. They're still keeping Frank Jackson in the rotation. I think obviously Jeremy Grant's minutes aren't going anywhere. I don't think that Isaiah Stewart's minutes can go anywhere because they don't have any other centers to play with Mason Plumlee out. It seems like Hamidou Diallo is going to play around 24 minutes no matter what. After that, your guess is as good as mine as who is going to shake out the rest of this rotation. They have like 5 different point guards they can play today. I think that whoever is the starting version of that is probably the best play, but you could tell me any of them are starting, and I would believe it at this point. Whether that's Frank Jackson, Killian Hayes, Saban Lee, Dennis Smith Jr., any one of those guys could be the starting point guard today, and I wouldn't bat an eye at it.
Usually the Thunder rule guys out in advance, so Baisley hasn't been ruled out yet, but Isaiah Roby is out, and then Lou Dort is questionable, so no SGA again, no Horford, obviously, no Isaiah Roby. What are we doing with the Oklahoma City Thunder where they're just decimated by injuries? Clearly just don't care if they're winning games at this point. I'm assuming they'd prefer not to, but they're going to have a tough time losing on purpose against the Detroit Pistons. Not saying they are.
Everybody's out. Everybody's out. Baisley out, Dort out, SGA out, Josh Hall out, Muscala out, Isaiah Roby out. All of them are out. They only have 9 active bodies.
They're all confirmed out now. Okay, so all of those guys confirmed. That makes our life a little bit easier. I was going to say, OKC is usually pretty good about reporting this stuff early. Yeah. With that being the case, then, how are we looking? How are we looking here at OKC on a team now that is going to be dealing with, first of all, they're playing Detroit. Yep. This game could actually still stay close. Yep. That's the crazy part about all this. This game could stay competitive with the Pistons only laying 3 points on the road. It could be really ugly, but it might not be a blowout. And even if it was a blowout, do they even have enough bodies to make a difference, like significant bodies? So what are we doing?
OKC's got 9 guys. I think this is pretty clearly the most important game on the slate because there are legitimately like 16 different dudes that could be the linchpin to a top lineup, which is craziness today. Nobody for OKC just immediately breaks free from the pack to me. We've got Pogoszewski, Maledon, Svi Mikhailiuk and Kenrich Williams, all in double digits on FanDuel. All of those guys are also in double digits on DraftKings, along with Ty Jerome, along with Justin Jackson. And then the sneakiest play of it all, Tony Bradley today on DraftKings is 3,500. He's been basically just splitting minutes with Moses Brown right now. So $3,500 Tony Bradley as the backup center for Oklahoma City is projected for the most ownership of anyone on OKC on DK right now at 27.5%. And I completely agree with it. You have to play all of OKC. I like Pogoshevsky. I like Maladon. I think Kenrich Williams is the best play on FanDuel. Svi Mikhailiuk is 3,800 still on FanDuel, going to play 30 minutes. I like all of those guys on DraftKings as well, but I think Bradley and Pogoshevsky are your two best options there. Either way, you're playing multiple men from Oklahoma City. Again, they have 9 active bodies. The only guys that I would not really be playing are probably Justin Jackson and Darius Miller. And I think that you can still even work them into 150 if you're playing 150 lineups. Jackson showed up in the optimal 6% of the time. Darius Miller, 4% of the time. So you can even get to those guys. I think everybody is available for Oklahoma City today if you're playing DFS, which is insane.
How many players do we think they'll have available?
They only have 9 available.
They have 9 available. All right.
At best, like if one of these guys are out, who the hell knows? But given everybody else that is out right now, unless they've signed someone to like a 10-day that I am not aware of, they have 9 active bodies. Teo Maladon, Moses Brown, Pogoshevsky, Ty Jerome, Svi Mikhailiuk, Kenrich Williams, Tony Bradley, Darius Miller, Justin Jackson. If they have a guy on a 10-day or something, that could change matters a little bit. But for right now, it's only 9.
What about Moses Brown's price point here? He's had a couple of ugly games. His minutes have been curtailed pretty significantly over his last 2. Granted, they lost by 37 points and like 48 or something absurd against Portland. So if he comes back here and plays in a competitive game, does he get back up to 30, 33 minutes? And is he viable enough at virtually no ownership on a team that has only 9 players? Or is it just not necessary given that his price has climbed as high as it has?
So I went 26-22 Moses Brown to Tony Bradley from a minutes perspective. They've basically been split the last 2 games, but they weren't split because of the blowout in any weird way. Like in the first blowout, they actually brought Moses Brown back in and he closed. Like Tony Bradley just played 24 minutes in the middle sections of rotations and Moses Brown was the bookend. In the most recent game that they got blown out in, they brought Moses Brown in to start the 4th quarter and then Tony Bradley closed. So I think that we're just going to see something along the lines of a split in minutes at center, but you have to give Moses Brown the benefit of the doubt because he is going to be the starter. So that led me to go 26-22, which makes it kind of difficult to get to Moses Brown at 6,800 and 7,100. There's nothing to say that he couldn't go out there and wreck Detroit. Who's slowing him down? Like all of these guys are sort of the same person in that none of them profile to be any good. I just don't want to pay 6,800 for Moses Brown or 7,100 if I don't have to. That's why it's so much easier to get to Tony Bradley at 3,500. Is he a pay up to be contrarian option? Maybe. I feel like you can find better places to pay up, though.
Yeah, I think you could too. And I just realized the time, Josh. So Sacramento, I did not. I'm assuming you didn't notice that either.
No.
Sacramento at Minnesota. And by the way, the starting 9 promo is still good. It's still going. It gets you 9 days of Awesemo plus MLB content for $9. Ownership, player projections, the top stack tool, which is amazing for baseball, the top pitchers tool. Everything you need to be successful playing daily fantasy baseball, we got you covered at awesemo.com/promos. Use the promo starting 9, STARTING, number 9, all one word. Get $9 for 9 days. Check out all the tools built by the number 1 ranked DFS player in the world. Be sure to join our Slack chat, hop in the community, and in office hours where you've got the pros at Awesemo taking your questions every day of the week. All right, Josh, Kings 4.5-point favorites, 234 total, highest of the slate.
Yeah, so this game is the second best game on the slate. Fox, Holmes, Halliburton, Barnes, Hield. You're always just playing these guys. They play 35 minutes a game. Every single one of them looks good. Most of them are in double digits in ownership. I think they're even going a bit under-owned. Halliburton for 5,800 on FanDuel, probably my best GPP play, but Fox is the clear best option from Sacramento. The real problem comes in for Minnesota. They are without Ricky Rubio, Malik Beasley, D'Angelo Russell, and Jalen Noel. So Jaden
Oklahoma
McDaniel.
City just waived Justin Jackson, so...
Okay. I would imagine that's going to mean that they're going to be signing somebody to a 10 game.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. So Minnesota, Jordan McLaughlin played north of 40 minutes the last time out. A couple other guys did as well. You are locking and loading Karl Anthony Towns, Jordan McLaughlin, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels. These guys are going to play a ton of minutes. McLaughlin in particular, I have in for 38 minutes, mid-fours price tag. He's owned in the 30 to 40% range. Towns and Edwards are in the 20s. All of that looks great. Minnesota is my second favorite team of the day. I am playing a ton of these guys. I think you can get to Naz Reid. I think you could even get to Josh Okogie at the flat minimum on DK, which is really gross. But this is one of the best games on the slate. Both defenses are terrible. Minnesota's shorthanded. Sacramento plays their starters big minutes. This is a recipe for success.
All right. I love it. And we wrap it up here with Phoenix and Houston. Of course, guys, if there's something you think we missed, we got so much going on throughout the day. Deeper dive, live before lock, all of that, the tip-off show. So just be sure to hang out with us. And I'm sure anything that you think is not covered will be covered. Phoenix 14-point favorites on the road, 220 total. Oh, and by the way, last thing, coming up next is the MLB strategy show. So don't go anywhere. Different link, but well worth watching. What do we got here, Josh? Phoenix, Houston.
This one's pretty easy. We know what we get out of Phoenix. They're rarely a good DFS option, but the prices are kind of where you need them to be. Chris Paul is neutrally owned to me on FanDuel. He's projected for 18, and I agree with it. Mikal Bridges is projected for 16, and I agree with it. I don't see Phoenix as all that viable on DraftKings. It's just not that kind of game. They're not going to they're just going to beat Houston by being a really good basketball team, not because they're going to put up 140 and just run them out of the building. I don't see that coming out of Phoenix. They're just going to be ultra efficient. So I like them a little bit more on FanDuel than I do on DK. Houston is a little bit more interesting. We know we're not going to have Daniel House. We know John Wall is out. So Christian Wood and Kevin Porter, very clearly the two best options on FanDuel at 8K and 6,200 respectively. On DK, we don't have anybody from Houston projected north of 6.8% ownership. I actually think they're getting a little bit underrepresented, but not nearly enough that I'm going to be advocating for anyone outside of $5,800 Kelly Olynyk on DraftKings. They're playing monster minutes alongside of Christian Wood, and now with Daniel House out, they don't really have a choice. So I have Kelly Olynyk in for 30 minutes. That makes him a nice contrarian option in a GPP. But this late night hammer, this 8 p.m. late night hammer, not much of a hammer.
All right, beautiful. Hey, you know how in college sports, college football, they have that inspirational message right at the edge of the locker room and they tap that on their way out, Josh?
Yeah. Play like a champion today.
Yeah. Let that thumbs up right under the screen be your inspirational message that you make sure to tap on your way out and straight over to the MLB strategy show. Hey, Jordan, thanks for producing the show. Josh, they can check out your contenders. They can check out the process show. We will be back here tomorrow with you. Me and Josh and me, 4 days a week. Josh and me. Who knows? We'll see you back here soon. It is the NBA strategy show presented by No House Advantage. Josh and me. Yeah, Josh and me.